So I hope my dogs don't go crazy in this live video. And someone said, hey, how's your YouTube endeavor going? This is not an endeavor. I get two views on stuff, so it's not at all um, about becoming a famous YouTuber. That's I'm not going to put any. I'm not going to get any better at this. This is what you're going to get. I'm not going to have any nice graphics or anything streaming or little pop-ups and things. I don't have the time or the care really to do that. But I thought Instagram, I would get these ideas. I would be thinking, and I miss teaching. Um, I miss. I think there is definitely something cathartic in this. I used to teach philosophy, and as I've said in the past, I really loved whether he said it or not, but I really loved the idea that Socrates said, you cannot teach. My real hope is not to teach anybody anything, but to get them to think. And so when I had kids thinking deeper about their situation, or their subconscious or their childhood, or anything to kind of forge themselves to become stronger, it was really powerful and empowering to me, um, to maybe get one or two individuals to become stronger mentally. And that's really what I loved about philosophy, and what it did to me, and at the time it came to me. um, but it really isn't. This isn't about me. It's not, and I think Instagram was just, how many likes can you get, how many hearts can you get, and this can be out there. This can be out there for that person who is maybe just like wandering through life, and looks at YouTube and realizes they're not alone, walking this earth. I think that we have to. I mean, we're not going to be friends with everybody. We can't BS that. That's just, you just can't. We're not going to be friends with everybody. We're not going to like everybody, but we have to have empathy that, just as if I don't like everybody in their interests, they're not going to like mine. And so, anyway, um, I digress on that. But this was never about me. It was actually to get, maybe a little bit harder to find, in a good way. I don't want to be in your face. So if you want to watch it, watch it. If you don't, don't. It's really, I get an idea. Um, and this was something that I was teaching to my athletes, and I think that's what I do too. I think some of them are like, Coach Bonus, we want to lift, we want to breathe, we want to roll, we want to stretch, we want to activate, we want to do those sorts of things, but we really don't want to hear your rants, on philosophy or words or anything like this. And I think that's just my desire to teach one or two individuals, that want to hear it, or want to not really hear it, but do what I do, hear something and then jump off. So I started to critically read as I got into more advanced books. I did not understand a lot of the words. So I would look them up. I would, Google them. I would find their meaning. And it made my reading better, because then I would have to go back and read. Then the word would make sense contextually, and the whole paragraph really came together much nicer when you understand certain words. So it's humbling, um, you know, but it's also, like I said, a crapshoot question. When I ask my athletes, I'm like, "Do you know what this word means?" No, they're probably not going to know it, and I know that it's almost a rhetorical question. Um, but anyway, Panacea was the first one that I asked them, and I said, "Do you know what Panacea means?" And they were like, "No." I think they were like, Pangea, the before the continents divide. They were talking about that, which I found was funny, but still trying to make a connection, and I thought that was good, and it was an active conversation. But a panacea is a cure-all. It's like I told him, um, it's a drop the mic for any kind of situation. Panacea fixes everything. Um, and that's kind of like where the word kind of confuses me, is because that's also, what is confusing about is there is no panacea. So everyone's like, "Oh yeah, Coach Bonus, you think breathing? Oh, you're just going to tell me to breathe?" And that's the joke. I said, "No, I don't. I think breathing is the easiest and free way, um, that is with you right away for you to start." Um, I think there's complexities and things you need to do. Um, there is so much that the breathing is not a panacea. Um, I tell kids to, if you want to get your gut right, take taurine. Well, Are they going to be disciplined enough to take taurine two to three times a day? Are they going to brew their own kombucha? Are they going to take curcumin? Are they going to take a good multivite? Are they going to eat beets and drink smoothies? No, see that I'm listing off a bunch of things because there is no panacea, and there is nothing that really applies to everybody. There is nothing psychologically that is panacea. Um, there is nothing socially that is panacea. So I don't want to keep saying the word. I do that. I tend to repeat. Um, but um, if you're looking at that, there's not one thing. And if we're looking at the dimensions of health, and we're looking at, being multidimensional, if we're looking at the complexities of the mind, if we're looking at the complexities of kind of society and the world and the different, dimensions that are there, um, environmental and all that, you can't, there is not one blanket. And I said to my kids, I said, if you walked into a library and saw one book, you'd be confused. There's not one book, right, in a library. And there's a reason for that, is because that one book would mean that it's a panacea. It would fix everything. It would have the answers to everything you need in life. And I don't believe that is true. And I think that's why libraries have many books. Um, and to that point, just going back to Socrates, you can hand a student a book. It's up to them whether they read it or not. And when you look at the panacea, you're like, okay, well, why does the word exist if there is nothing, or people throw around a cure all, or something that fixes everything? Why do they have it? Well, I look at it, and again, I'm not that smart, so I could be really drawing at straws here, but it leads to this word called protean. And when I saw protean, Panacea, I can't remember where I first saw it, what book I saw it in, and then Protean, I can't remember. I might have seen it in Rollo May's book. It might have been Frankel's. It might have been um, Nestor's. Kotler. Really can't remember where I saw it used. But anyway, guys, go on. My dogs are kind of wanting attention. I Googled it. I didn't know what it meant. When I first Googled it, actually, um, something for Pokemon came up. And my son is a big Pokemon fan, or was anyway. So I asked him what it meant. And it's funny. I just think that I've heard a couple different things as my son was getting into Pokemon that are actually very wise and actually rooted in science. And then, of course, they make them kind of fictional. Um, but still, I do feel that whoever, or the creators of Pokemon, were very intelligent. And I think you'd be like, well, duh, it's massively successful. But I think there was a lot more intellect and wisdom behind Pokemon than we give, um, maybe at first glance. That aside, Protean is it's not just an ability to um, adjust and adapt. And I think you hear that from military: adapt, adjust, evolve, overcome, whatever. Well, Protean is a little bit different. It's an ability to change. It's ability to go from one thing to the next and actually be pretty good at it. It's the ability to be pretty good at multiple things. And to be a protean person, um, it's difficult. It's very, very difficult to be good at many different things. And the reason why is because we really sometimes don't care. We're not interested in it. There's nothing driving us necessarily towards that thing to be good at. A lot of people would like to become good at surfing, but they're not close to the ocean. They don't have the money to get a board or a wetsuit. They don't have the time. So it's not really that they couldn't become good at surfing. It's that they just don't have the availability to it. Um, you could be a very good woodworker, but you don't have the time, you don't have the tools, you don't have the money, you don't have the capital, you don't have the space. So being protean is not always singular in why you're not good at many things. But I think there is one major thing that in being protean that is great, is that your desire to grow and to learn and to see new things. And I mean, I my family and my wife and and people will tell you I got really into cycling. I was really, really into that for a while. I got really into rock climbing. I was into that for a while. Um, I've always been into exercise and swimming and stuff like that. So, um, and yeah, I just listed off a bunch of physical things, not a bunch of intellectual things. Um, I did forge things for a little while. I had a forge and I hammered and I did it really poorly, but it was fun. And I liked taking metal, scrap metal, and turning it into something a bit more desirable. I like to look at my life that way. Um, I'm still alive because I have a lot of stuff to fix and forge out of myself. Um, but being protean and being good at things is what I experienced, and I told my friend, like, I've never done this before, so stop it. I give myself plenty of time to look foolish, and we don't do that. And Stephen Kotler talks about, starting in stupid. And I don't think that's his only. I think a lot of people, but like I've said, I think the whole cliche of having to fail. Well, I think to be protean, you have to understand that you're going to start in foolish. I talked about that, the sigmoid function of life. You start slow, rapid, and then you actually plateau. Um, but to try to become better at multiple things, um, and the ability to change is that, um, again, understanding full well, there might be some things you pick up and the transition is easy. There's a lot of connections from one thing to the other. It's perfect. It's seamless. There's going to be other things that are tougher, because you're not picking up on it. You have to actually maybe have someone show you or tell you something. You may have to, um, have someone instruct you a little bit, and then you're going to have to put in the practice. Um, Obviously, your passion and desire is going to feed whether you continue through the foolish or the stupid. But we, as adults, um, and I'm just like, I'm really argumentative. I always kind of like want to find the paradox. I always want to find the opposing viewpoint of, this book that was written. And I'm sure she's brilliant. She's a PhD. Like, she's definitely brilliant. I don't know her name, but she wrote something, The Emotional Lives of Teenagers. And that really, really bothers me because teenagers start so many different things. They get thrown into so many new things. Um, yeah, they're emotional. That's fine. And we could talk about brain development. That's one thing. But adults just actually start to, as they get older, they start to cleave off the situations that make them emotional. They start to avoid those things that make them emotional. They start to avoid competition. They start to settle into a more easy kind of sedentary lifestyle. Um, they don't take as many chances. They don't filter as much information, nor do they constantly think as adolescents do. And I think adolescents are asked to do a lot of things we as adults aren't willing to do. So you're going to call them an emotion, the emotions of the teenagers, and and you're going to be, oh, well, you're not really looking into the whole thing, and they'll get defensive. Well, we're all emotional. Adults just suppress their emotions a little bit better, and maybe not better. Maybe it causes more problems because they're not as emotional. They don't express their emotions as much. And maybe an adolescent who is, right out of the box, exactly where they're coming from, where they stand, their emotions. Maybe that's actually valuable. And so being protean in being able to be good at many different things is that ability to have the emotion of having a little bit of insecurity, a little bit of self doubt, and working through that, forging through that to become better. So there's no panacea. There's nothing that's going to cure. There is no solution to your life's problems or anything within the dimensions of health or the realms of the world. There is this thing, though, it ties perfectly with growth mindset. It's becoming a protean individual, someone who can change, someone who can then, in the new thing that they take on, be very good at it. You can do that. We're humans. And I think that a lot of what we as humans have done is not that impressive. But um, a bear has to go and live in a cave. We can take sticks and rocks and mud and stone and cement and make a house. As Lao Tzu said, we're both desiring the internal space. We just have a different kind of brain chemistry and structure that we can actually build something. We don't have to go out in the woods and seek a cave. But remember, we are those people that can do that. We are that human spirit that can create and make and change and recognize and adjust and recognize right now. We have way too much. We're way outside, food, shelter, water, safety. We're way far out of that. And so remember, nothing that I say means anything. It's all what you're going to do. It's got to be action based. If you want to feel better about yourself, you have to take action. I don't think just talking, listening is the panacea. Get out and do stuff, and enjoy the world in which we live.